Hi guys, welcome back. Today we are canning up 4 more meal in a jar recipes. As I've mentioned in previous videos, we are heading into a really busy season, and having some of these ready to eat meals on the pantry shelf has been a total game changer for us. So we are doing 4 different recipes today for a total of 14 meals. 3 of those recipes come straight from Ball. They are tested and approved. 1 of them is not. However, I feel perfectly safe canning it, and I'll be sure to make it explicitly clear in case you are not comfortable, deviating from a tested and approved recipe. So the 4 different recipes we're going to be making today are chicken chili verde, chicken marsala, that is the only recipe that is not tested, and then beef stroganoff and chipotle beef, which will be great for things like tacos, taco bowls, burrito bowls, that kind of thing. So let's get started. So the great thing about these recipes is they do come together really quickly. Last night I took about an hour total to prep all the ingredients for all 4 recipes, and that's just gonna speed up the process even more today. The most time consuming part is just processing in the pressure canner. For my size pressure canner, it is gonna take me 2 batches today. So the first recipe we're gonna be canning is the chicken marsala. This is the only hot pack recipe that we're doing today, and as I mentioned, this is not a tested recipe. I feel safe canning it, but if you like to stick to those tested and approved recipes, this is the only one I'm sharing today that has not been tested. So I've got 2.5 cups of chicken bone broth here in my pot, and I'm adding 3 pounds of cubed chicken breast. I just cubed these into probably 1.5 to 2 inch cubes. And we're gonna get this boiling over medium-high heat for about 10 minutes. This is kind of adapted from a recipe that I found online. I'll be sure to link that as well as what I'm doing in the description box down below. And you could take the time to brown all of the chicken. I am just skipping that step today. So that's been boiling about 10 minutes now, and our aim with this isn't to fully cook the chicken. We want it about 2/3 cooked, and I'm gonna add in 2 cups of the Marsala wine. And then a pound of sliced mushrooms. Six cloves of garlic. And salt and pepper. How much do I need? Okay, so 2¼ teaspoons of salt. If you were using like bouillon or a store-bought broth, you might want to reduce that, or I mean, even if you salt your homemade broth. I typically don't, so 2¼ teaspoons, oops, of salt, and then 3/4 teaspoons of ground black pepper. So super simple. I'm gonna get this back up to a boil. We're gonna boil this for another 5 minutes, and then we'll get it jarred up. We are not working with the best lighting today. It is gray and rainy outside, but I'm gonna go ahead and get these jars filled. I've got clean and hot quart jars here. My calculation said this should make 3 quart jars. I am looking at this thinking it might end up being a little bit more than that. I'm just using store-bought chicken breast for the recipes today. Our meat birds are set to arrive this coming Friday. By the time you see this video, we already would have them. And I'm super excited about that. So this is probably the last chicken that I'm gonna buy before we process our own birds. I think I'm gonna be able to make this into the 3 jars. So I was able to fit all of that chicken marsala into the 3-quart jars, which is perfect. So I'm just going ahead and debubbling, then we will adjust headspace. I think we will need to, and then get these jars cleaned up, and we'll put them aside so we can work on that next recipe. I'm just gonna get the rims of these jars cleaned up really well with some vinegar, and then we'll get the lids on. We're just adding those lids to fingertip tight. Okay, so next up we are doing the chicken chili verde, and we are doing 4-quart jars. This is us doubling the recipe. Again, all of these recipes will be down in the description box below. And I have some chicken bone broth just heating here in the Instant Pot to top these off with. So I have 4 pounds of chicken breast here. We are gonna evenly divide this between each jar. So there's a pound of chicken breast in each jar. These are cubed about 1.5 to 2 inch cubes. Okay, so that is about even. The recipe calls for cannellini beans. I am using navy beans. You want to make sure that these are fully cooked. I just cooked these from dry beans in the Instant Pot yesterday, and we're gonna add 1/2 cup to each jar. Next, I'm gonna add 1/2 cup of green onion. And then about 2 tablespoons of chopped cilantro. I love cilantro. If you don't like it, I know that's pretty common, just leave it out. Okay, and then we're doing 2 tablespoons of pickled jalapenos per quart jar. Pickled jalapenos are one of my favorite things ever. And I really need to make sure I can some this year. I never actually end up canning pickled jalapenos. And then we've got 4 cloves of garlic minced here. I'm just gonna try and evenly divide that. And then salt, you wanna make sure that you're using a non-iodized salt. I'm using a teaspoon per quart jar. Again, I am using homemade bone broth that doesn't have any salt in it, so if you're using a bouillon or something, you might want to go a little bit less on the salt. Okay, and then you need salsa verde. This is actually how I typically use my salsa verde in something like a white chicken chili or like chicken enchiladas. So this is a roasted green tomato salsa verde. It's a great way to use up a bunch of leftover green tomatoes. It's not our favorite for like chips and salsa. We like our roasted tomato salsa for that. But I love having this on hand. So we're gonna do 1/2 cup per quart jar of the roasted green tomato salsa. I'm just using 1 pint jar, so I won't have quite enough to do a full 1/2 cup per quart, but that is totally fine. I'm just going a little bit less than that 1/2 cup mark. Okay, so that is it. I'm just gonna get these topped off with the chicken bone broth. We will debubble, get the lids on, and then get these into the canner. Okay, my camera battery died on me there, but we are back. So I'm gonna get these jars into the pressure canner. The first recipe we did was the chicken marsala, and that was a hot pack recipe. The chicken chili verde wasn't, but they are about the same temperature now. So I'm gonna go ahead and get 3 quarts of water into the pressure canner. We will add these jars, and it's gonna process for 90 minutes. Since we were doing quart jars, if you were doing pints, it would just be 75. And the pressure that you process at is just gonna be dependent on your elevation and whether you're using a weighted or a dial gauge pressure canner. All right, we let a steady stream of steam come out of the vent pipe for 10 minutes. Now I'm just putting on my regulator. Once the pressure comes up, we will start the timer. We're just about to get started on the beef stroganoff and the chipotle beef, and for both recipes, I'm gonna need some beef broth. So I just have some beef bone broth heating up here in the Instant Pot, but I just wanted to show that to you. Look at how gelatinous that is. That is what we're looking for when we're making bone broth. Again, we are working with clean, hot jars, and we're starting off with the beef stroganoff. So I have just under 4 pounds of beef here, and I'm gonna go ahead and get about 1 pound into each of these jars. This year is gonna be a really exciting year here for us. We are raising 2 pigs, 2 Berkshire Tamworth pigs. They will be coming home mid-May, so just about a month away now. And then we are doing 2 batches of meat chickens. So the only protein that we're gonna be buying this year is gonna be fish and beef. So next up, I am gonna be adding 1/2 cup of onion to each of these jars. So that's one of the things that has been keeping us busy. My husband has been busy building a couple paddocks. One we will be using for the meat chickens, but we're building it so we can use it for, you know, something else. Okay, and then about 1/2 cup of mushrooms into each of these as well. And then I've got 4 cloves of garlic, so I'm just gonna divide that, about 1 clove per jar. Oops. And lost half of it there. Okay, so we're gonna add in 2 tablespoons of tomato paste per jar, and then 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce. I cannot say that. So you'll see we're not adding any thickeners to these. When I go to heat them up, I will likely add in a little bit of arrowroot. That's what I typically add to thicken. You could do flour, cornstarch, whatever your preference is. We'll probably end up serving this over rice. You could do pasta, egg noodles, whatever your preference is. Okay, and then for seasonings, we're doing half a teaspoon of ground black pepper per jar. A teaspoon of salt. Again, non-iodized salt. I'm using just pink Himalayan sea salt. And then we're also going to do a teaspoon each of parsley and thyme. One of you commented, I think on my last meal in a jar recipe video, suggesting that I pour my broth into a glass measuring cup like this. And I don't know why I hadn't thought of that. I've just been ladling, which takes a lot more time. So this works great. And then we're just gonna get this debubbled, check on the headspace. Again, we're going for 1 inch with this. And then we'll get these jars cleaned up. And while I'm debubbling, I'm just getting that tomato paste mixed in there. It will just kind of dissolve into the hot broth. Okay, those ones are ready to go. Okay, and just like that, we are on to our last recipe, which is the Chipotle Beef. I believe I am timesing this recipe by 1.5. So we are doing 3 quarts, and that will make a good amount of meat for a few meals for us for sure, for tacos, taco bowls, all that kind of thing. I feel like I need to address this, that my jar is not dirty. There's paint on the bottom. So we purchased my husband's grandparents' home, and with that we kind of inherited some canning supplies, canning jars and whatnot, and that was how his grandmother marked her jars, to keep track of them. So we have 3 pounds of beef here, just cut into 1.5 to 2 inch cubes. I'm going to evenly divide that between these 3 jars. Okay, and then I've got 3 cups of sliced onions. Again, just gonna divide that evenly between the jars. And I'm losing onions. All right, and then garlic. I've got 12 cloves of minced garlic here, so it's about 4 cloves per quart jar. And then a 1/4 cup per jar of cilantro. Again, if you don't like cilantro, just leave it out. Now, the recipe calls for 1 chipotle in adobo per jar. I don't have any. I'm just gonna use 1/2 teaspoon of chipotle powder per jar. If you don't like chipotle flavoring, you could do just chili powder, cumin. It's totally safe to change that up. Okay, and then a teaspoon of oregano. And a teaspoon of salt. And then we just need to top these off with the broth and we are good to go. I think this is going to be so good with that peach salsa. It's another ball recipe and it's one of our favorites. So that's probably the first way I'm going to end up using this. All right, so that first batch is out of the canner and it looks like we've got 7 quart jars that have sealed beautifully. Of course, I will go ahead and double check them before moving them into the pantry tomorrow morning. We've got another 7 processing still, and altogether, I would say it was a pretty successful day. We got 14 ready to eat meals to put onto the pantry shelf, and those are gonna come in so handy throughout gardening season as we approach it, and especially over the next few weeks as we get ready to welcome pigs and our meat birds in just a few days. So lots of exciting stuff happening around here. I'm looking forward to documenting all of that for you guys. And if you enjoyed today's video, definitely go check out the meal in a jar recipe video that I did just a few weeks back. I'm sure you would enjoy that too. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.